The morning sun caught the edge of my tablet screen as I reviewed the quarterly reports. Even at this early hour, my WhatsApp was already buzzing with notifications. I knew without looking who it would be. Only one person would dare to message me at 7 a.m. about my father's estate, Victoria. I continued analyzing the market trends, trying to focus on the familiar comfort of numbers and charts. My father had taught me that data never lies, even when people do. The roses on my balcony swayed gently in the morning breeze, my one concession to the gardening passion I'd inherited from him. These weren't the expansive gardens of his estate, but they were mine, blooming defiantly 20 stories above Manhattan. The message notification blinked again. Victoria's text dripped with artificial sweetness. Still buried in those boring financial reports, I see. Some things never change. I set my tablet down, my hand brushing against the small potted rose bush Dad had given me when I got my MBA. Life's not just about the numbers, Sarah, he'd said. Sometimes the most valuable growth happens in the smallest spaces. The white roses were blooming now, despite the city's harsh environment. I know why you're messaging, I typed back, keeping my tone professional. The reading of the will is tomorrow. My father's legacy isn't something to be discussed over WhatsApp. Victoria's response was immediate, accompanied by photos of the estate's interior. Your father's legacy needs updating. James and I have already chosen new furnishings. That dated decor has to go. The sight of their planned renovations made my stomach turn. Every piece of furniture she wanted to replace had a story. The mahogany desk where Dad had taught me about investment strategies. The leather armchair where he'd nursed me through my first stock market loss. The estate isn't yours to renovate, I replied, my finger hovering over the block button. But Dad's voice echoed in my memory. Sometimes the best strategy is to let your opponent show their hand. Victoria sent another message, this one with a video tour of the garden. The landscapers are coming next week. All these old roses. Such a waste of space. We're thinking a modern Zen garden would be more appropriate. Time to say goodbye to Daddy's precious flowers. The pruning shears I used for my balcony roses suddenly felt heavy in my hand. I set them down carefully, remembering Dad's wisdom about patience and timing. He'd always said the markets were like his garden. Success came to those who knew when to act and when to wait. I picked up my phone and called the one person who would understand both the legal and emotional implications of what was unfolding. Emma. Victoria's making her moves earlier than we expected. Yes, she's exactly as aggressive as we anticipated. Can you come over? There's something about the will I need to discuss with you. My best friend's voice was firm and reassuring. I'll be there in 30 minutes. Don't respond to any more messages. Your father made sure all of this would play out exactly as it needs to. As I ended the call, my tablet chimed with a new email notification. The sender was unfamiliar, but the subject line made my heart skip. Time sensitive. Instructions from Robert Harrison. I noticed the attachment was dated 3 days before Dad's death. Well, Dad, I whispered, looking at my small urban garden. Looks like you left me one last investment strategy to execute. Sarah's apartment 30 minutes later. Emma arrived exactly on schedule, carrying her briefcase in one hand and a bottle of aged whiskey in the other. I thought we might need this, she said, holding up the bottle as she entered my apartment. Her heels clicked against the hardwood floors, a sound so different from Victoria's intrusive stride through Dad's garden in those surveillance videos. I was still at my desk, the mysterious email unopened on my tablet. The morning sun had shifted, casting long shadows across my home office, a space that felt both like a fortress and a confession booth these days. "You haven't opened it yet." Emma nodded at my tablet, setting her briefcase down with a characteristic heavy thud. The sound reminded me of all the late nights we'd spent building cases together, from our law school days to now. "I wanted to wait for you." I turned the tablet over, a gesture that felt heavier than it should. After what Victoria said about Michael helping them, Emma poured 2 generous measures of whiskey into my crystal tumblers, Dad's graduation gift, when I finished my MBA. "Open it, Sarah. Your father was very specific about certain things being revealed at certain times." My head snapped up. "What do you mean?" She handed me a glass, the amber liquid catching the light. "Open the email, Sarah." With steady fingers, steadier than I felt, I opened the attachment. Inside was a detailed PDF and an encrypted audio file. "My dear Sarah," I read aloud, my father's voice echoing in my memory. "If you're reading this, then someone has already moved on the company. Knowing human nature as I do, I'm guessing it's Victoria. She always did remind me of a hostile takeover, all promises and no substance." Emma raised her glass in a small salute. "The encrypted file contains access codes to my private server. Inside you'll find everything you need to protect what's yours. Remember what I taught you about market timing. Sometimes you have to let a stock fall to reveal its true value. Love, Dad." I looked up at Emma, who was already pulling out her laptop. "You knew about this. I helped him set it up," she admitted, her fingers flying over the keyboard. "Your father came to me 6 months ago, right after his diagnosis. He knew exactly how this would play out." The server access revealed a folder labeled Contingency. Inside was a trove of financial documents, surveillance photos, and email trails. One photo made my breath catch. Victoria meeting with someone in a shadowy corner of the financial district. "Look at the timestamp," Emma pointed. "This was taken 3 days before your father's death." My hands trembled as I picked up my glass. "Is that Michael meeting with her?" 3 weeks before your father died," Emma confirmed. "But look at the next image." The second photo showed my brother leaving the meeting, his expression a mask of controlled rage. He was clutching what looked like a USB drive. "He's been gathering evidence," Emma explained. "Brought everything straight to your father." That's when Robert knew he had to accelerate the plan. But Victoria said Michael was helping them. "Your brother's been playing a dangerous game, Sarah. Feeding them just enough information to keep them confident while helping your father document their attempted corporate takeover." Sarah's apartment, evening. I sank back in my chair, the weight of revelation heavy in my chest. The whiskey burned, but not as much as the truth. Why didn't he tell me? Because Victoria needed to show her hand first. Emma pulled out more documents from her briefcase. "Tomorrow, when I read the will, Victoria and James will think they've won. The initial reading will grant them significant shares in Harrison Investments." "What?" I stood so quickly my whiskey glass tipped, the amber liquid spreading across the financial reports like a stain. "Let me finish." Emma held up her hand. "That's when the contingency kicks in. Your father set up a corporate governance trap, Sarah. The moment they accept the shares, they trigger a clause that reveals their attempted hostile takeover. Everything, the insider trading, the attempted bribery, the offshore accounts, becomes part of the public record. I stared at the evidence spread across my desk, understanding dawning like a market opening bell. He made them think they'd won, so they'd incriminate themselves. Exactly. Emma's smile was sharp as a margin call. The actual controlling interest goes to you, with a protected trust set up for Michael. Victoria and James get nothing except a very public SEC investigation. And tomorrow, she finished her whiskey. We watch them walk right into the trap they set for themselves. I picked up Dad's email again, running my fingers over his digital signature. Even from beyond the grave, he was teaching me, protecting me, showing me how to fight back. One more thing, Emma said, checking her phone. Michael wants to see you tonight. He has something else you need to know before tomorrow. I looked out my apartment window at the Manhattan skyline, thinking of my brother, of Victoria's smug messages, of all the pieces my father had carefully positioned like trades before a market shift. Tell him to come over. It's time for a family merger. Later that night, Michael arrived as the city lights were coming on, looking nothing like the polished investment banker who'd stood beside James at the funeral. His usually immaculate suit was creased, his eyes shadowed with the kind of exhaustion that comes from maintaining too many covers for too long. "You look terrible," I said, breaking the ice. "Yeah, well, playing double agent in corporate espionage isn't as glamorous as the movies make it seem." He attempted a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Can I come in?" Sarah's apartment, late evening. I gestured to the chair across from my desk. Emma had left an hour ago, but the evidence of our earlier discovery still cluttered my workspace. Financial documents mixing with surveillance photos like a strange corporate collage. "I see you found Dad's contingency plan," Michael said, nodding at the scattered papers. "Why didn't you tell me what you were doing?" The question came out sharper than I intended, analyst's precision cutting through sisterly concern. He collapsed into the chair, his banker's posture crumbling. "Because I needed to make it right. After everything with James, the way I handled your divorce. I was worse than a bad investment, Sarah. I was a liability." "You were my brother," I corrected. "You were supposed to be my safest investment." "I know." He opened his briefcase and pulled out a USB drive. "This is what Victoria offered me to testify that Dad wasn't a sound mind when he made his final corporate restructuring. $5 million in offshore accounts to betray my own sister." I stared at the drive, then at my brother. "But you didn't take it." "No, I took it straight to Dad." Michael's voice cracked. "You should have seen his face, Sarah. Not angry, just disappointed. Like watching a promising startup fail its IPO. The city hummed 20 stories below, a constant reminder of the financial world we'd both been raised in. "There's more," Michael continued, pulling out his secure phone. "I recorded everything. Every meeting, every offer, every threat. Victoria, she's been planning this takeover for months. Even before Dad's diagnosis." He pressed play. Victoria's voice filled my office. "Once the old man's out, we'll contest the corporate restructuring using your testimony about his mental state and James' long-standing position in the company. We'll get controlling interest. That Sarah won't know what hit her." My hands clenched into fists. When was this? 2 months ago. But wait, there's worse. He fast-forwarded the recording. James' voice now. We'll liquidate the non-performing assets, strip the company for parts. Sarah can go back to her entry-level analysis position. She never deserved the executive track anyway. Turn it off, I whispered. Sarah's apartment, near midnight. Michael complied, then pulled out one final document. This is why I came tonight. Victoria didn't just want the company, Sarah. She wanted revenge. On you. Revenge? For what? For making James look incompetent. For exposing his trading losses. He paused. For making him face consequences when you caught their insider trading scheme. The memory hit me like a market crash. Walking into the trading floor, finding their unauthorized positions, Victoria's triumphant smile as my marriage imploded alongside their illegal trades. She was our CFO for 3 years, Michael continued. She planned everything, worked her way up, into James' confidence, into Dad's executive circle. This document proves she started embezzling from Harrison Investments 6 months before you discovered their trading scheme. I grabbed the paper, my analyst's eyes scanning the transaction records and account numbers. Dad knew about this. Found out right before his diagnosis. He was building a case with the SEC, but the cancer. Michael's voice trailed off. That's when he started planning this instead, I said. Sometimes the best market correction needs a different approach. The contingency plan, Michael murmured. Yeah. Tomorrow's going to be brutal. They think they've got it all figured out. Victoria's even hired a PR team to document their historic acquisition of Harrison Investments. Despite everything, I laughed. She hired cameras to record her own downfall. Dad would have appreciated the market irony. Michael smiled, a genuine one this time. Listen, I know I can't fix the past 3 years with one night of revelations, but I want you to know I'm here now. Whatever happens tomorrow, I've got your back. I walked to my balcony, looking out at my small rose garden, silvered by city lights. Remember when we were kids and Dad caught us fighting over that first stock picking contest? Sarah's apartment, late night. Michael joined me at the balcony. He made us analyze each other's portfolios. Said we needed to learn to see value clearly. I turned to face my brother. I see clearly now, Michael. I see what Dad was trying to teach us, even at the end. He nodded, understanding in his eyes. That sometimes the biggest market win isn't in aggressive trading. It's in letting your opponents overextend themselves. My phone chimed with a WhatsApp message from Emma. Final preparations complete for tomorrow. The SEC representatives are confirmed. The city pulsed below us. A reminder that tomorrow was getting closer with each tick of the market clock. You should get some rest, Michael said, gathering his evidence. Tomorrow's going to be one hell of a shareholders' meeting. As I watched him leave, I touched the glass of my balcony door, cool and solid under my fingers. Dad had always loved high-rise views, said they were the eyes of the financial world, watching over his legacy. Tomorrow they would witness justice served, exactly the way he had planned it. The next morning, Harrison Investments headquarters. The morning of the will reading dawned bright and clear. I sat in Dad's executive office, watching Emma arrange papers on his massive mahogany desk, while camera equipment was set up around the room. Victoria's PR team is here, Michael announced, slipping through the door. You should see her out there, practicing her acceptance speech for the board. Everything ready? I asked Emma. She potted her briefcase. All set. The contingency plan is sealed in this envelope, along with copies of all the evidence. Once they accept the initial terms. A commotion in the hallway cut her off. Victoria's voice carried through the door, high and excited. This is where we'll put the new trading floor. The old layout is so inefficient. Places everyone. Harrison Investments boardroom. Let the show begin, Emma muttered, straightening her suit jacket as Victoria swept in wearing a black designer dress that probably cost more than a junior analyst's annual bonus. James followed, looking uncomfortable in his bespoke suit. The PR team trailed behind them, adjusting lights and checking camera angles. Sarah. James nodded stiffly. It was the first time he'd addressed me directly since the insider trading scandal. Let us begin, Emma announced, taking her place behind Dad's desk. As Robert's general counsel, I'll be reading his last will and testament, along with any additional corporate governance documents he prepared before his passing. Victoria practically bounced in her leather chair. We're ready. The initial reading went exactly as Emma had warned me. Dad's estate and company shares were to be divided. 60% to me, 40% to James and Victoria. I knew it, Victoria squealed, grabbing James' arm. Robert trusted our vision for the company. However, Emma continued, her voice cutting through Victoria's celebration. There is a contingency clause to the corporate restructuring, added 3 days before Robert's death. Victoria's smile faltered. A what? A governance modification, James explained, suddenly looking nervous. His years in corporate law showing through. What kind of? Of modification? Emma broke the seal on the envelope. The acceptance of any controlling interest under this will is contingent upon a full investigation into certain financial irregularities discovered in the months preceding Robert's death. The boardroom went silent. Even the cameras seemed to hold their breath. What irregularities? Victoria's voice had lost its triumphant edge. Perhaps these will explain, Emma said, sliding the photos across the polished mahogany. Or this USB drive, containing footage of attempted bribery. Or these transaction records, showing systematic embezzlement from Harrison Investments. Harrison Investments boardroom. Minutes later, James grabbed one of the financial records, his face draining of color. Where did you get these? Dad had quite the audit trail, Michael spoke up from his corner. Including recordings of you both planning to contest the company restructuring based on false testimony about his mental state. Victoria stood up so fast her executive chair toppled backward. Turn those cameras off. Now. Oh no, I said, standing to face her. The cameras stay. You wanted to document this historic acquisition, remember? You can't do this. She hissed. James, tell them they can't do this. But James was still staring at the evidence, particularly one document showing him entering a competitor's office with confidential trading algorithms. The contingency clause is quite clear, Emma continued, professional as ever. Any attempt to claim controlling interest automatically triggers the release of all this evidence to the SEC and proper authorities. The choice is yours. Choice? Victoria laughed hysterically. What choice? You've trapped us. No, I corrected her. channeling Dad's calm during market volatility. You trapped yourselves. Every scheme, every fraudulent trade, every attempt to steal what wasn't yours. It all led to this moment. This is your fault. She whirled on Michael. You were supposed to help us. Michael adjusted his tie. I did help. Just not you. James, she pleaded. Do something. But James was already standing, straightening his collar with shaking hands. It's over, Victoria. We've lost. The hell it is. I won't let that. That is my daughter. Dad's voice filled the boardroom. Everyone froze as Emma played the video file. Dad's face appeared on the boardroom screen, thin but determined, recorded just days before his death. And if you're watching this, it means you've shown your true colors, just as I knew you would. The market always reveals the truth about value, and you've just proven you have none. Harrison Investments boardroom. The aftermath. Victoria's mascara ran in black streaks as she backed toward the boardroom door. This isn't over. Actually, Emma said, it is. The SEC agents are waiting in the lobby to discuss the evidence of securities fraud. I'd suggest cooperating. It might help with sentencing. As Victoria and James were led away, the cameras still rolling, I felt Dad's presence in every corner of his executive office. He'd orchestrated it all, not just to protect his company, but to teach one final lesson about corporate integrity and patience. Well, Michael said into the silence, I guess those cameras did catch their historic market moment after all. The media circus that followed was exactly what Victoria had wanted, just not in the way she'd planned. By evening, financial news networks lined the street, and my phone wouldn't stop buzzing with calls from reporters. You need to see this, Michael said, turning up the volume on Dad's old Bloomberg terminal in the study. Victoria's arrest was playing on every channel, her mascara-streaked face, a stark contrast to her designer dress, as SEC agents led her to their vehicle. The investigation into Harrison Investments has uncovered multiple instances of securities fraud, the reporter's voice droned on. Turn it off, I said, rubbing my temples. I can't watch anymore. Emma burst through the door, waving her phone. It gets better. The U.S. attorney just called. They found offshore accounts, shell corporations, everything. Victoria wasn't just stealing from your father's company. She was running a sophisticated financial fraud scheme. And James? I asked, not sure why I still cared about my ex-husband's fate. Cooperating fully with the authorities, Michael replied. Turns out he's not so loyal when facing serious federal charges. Harrison Investments, Executive Office, evening. A sharp knock at the office door made us all jump. A federal investigator entered, looking apologetic. Ms. Harrison, we need to discuss some additional evidence we've uncovered. More? I gestured for him to sit. What now? We found documents in Ms. Pierce's private server suggesting this wasn't her first financial scheme. There are at least 3 other cases of her targeting financial institutions, though she never succeeded on this scale before. Emma leaned forward, lawyer instincts engaged. Other companies? Yes. She would typically work her way up through corporate ranks, then orchestrate situations to gain access to trading systems. The investigator pulled out a file. Sound familiar? The CFO position, I whispered. It wasn't random. No, it wasn't. She specifically targeted your ex-husband because of his position in Harrison Investments. The affair was just her entry strategy. My stomach turned. 3 years of self-doubt about my failed marriage suddenly shifted perspective. There's something else, the investigator continued. We found this in her encrypted files. It appears to be a detailed plan for after she gained control of the company. He handed me a document that made my blood run cold. Detailed notes about accidents that could befall me after the transfer of power, plans to frame Michael for securities fraud, even strategies to dismantle Dad's carefully built company piece by piece. She would have destroyed everything, I said flatly. She never would have gotten the chance, Michael growled, gripping his armrest. The investigator nodded grimly. This evidence upgrades the charges significantly. Combined with the securities fraud and attempted bribery, she's looking at 15 to 20 years minimum. Harrison Investments, Executive Office. Late evening. After the investigator left, we sat in stunned silence until Emma's phone buzzed again. It's my contact at the U.S. Attorney's office, she said, reading the message. James just finished his statement. He's admitted to everything, including helping Victoria access confidential trading algorithms before Dad's death. Did he know? I had to ask about her plans for the company. No, Michael answered, scanning the documents. According to this, she kept that part to herself. Probably knew he wouldn't have the stomach for corporate sabotage. A thought struck me. Dad knew, didn't he? That's why he put all this in motion. Emma nodded slowly. He suspected. That's why he hired the forensic accountants, why he documented everything. He wasn't just protecting his legacy. He was protecting the entire company, and you. I walked to the window of Dad's office, looking out at the Manhattan skyline, now swarming with news vans. The lights of the financial district still blazed, oblivious to the drama that had just unfolded in one of its towers. We should release a statement, Michael suggested. Control the narrative before Victoria's lawyers try to spin this. Already drafted. Emma pulled out her laptop. A simple statement about cooperating with federal authorities and requesting privacy during this transition period. Professional, measured. Everything Victoria wasn't. Dad would like that, I said, managing a small smile. There's one more thing, Michael said, pulling an envelope from his jacket. I found this in Dad's private safe. It's marked after justice is served. Harrison Investments Executive Office Night. My hands shook as I opened the envelope, recognizing Dad's distinctive handwriting once again. My dear Sarah, if you're reading this, then the truth has finally come to light. Don't let this experience harden your market instincts. The company still needs nurturing, and leadership still needs vision. I didn't set this trap just for justice. I did it so you could be free. Free from doubt, free from fear, and free to lead with integrity. Remember what I taught you about investment horizons. The best growth comes after a market correction. The company is yours now, to guide into the future. And don't forget to tend to those roses. Some things are worth more than any market valuation. Love always, Dad. Outside, financial reporters continued their live broadcasts, telling the world about the scandal, the arrests, the corporate fraud. But inside Dad's office, surrounded by the evidence of his foresight and wisdom, I finally felt something I hadn't experienced since discovering James and Victoria's betrayal 3 years ago. Peace. So, Michael said, breaking the silence. What now? I looked out at the city lights, then at my brother and best friend. Now we rebuild. Not just the company, everything. To Dad, Michael raised his coffee mug. To integrity, Emma added, raising hers. I picked up my own mug, thinking of market cycles and garden seasons, of endings and beginnings, of growth and renewal. Through the window, the city glowed in the night, each light a reminder of Dad's belief that true value can emerge even from the darkest market corrections. He'd given me more than justice. He'd given me back my future, one calculated step at a time.